All right, everyone, welcome. Happy Tuesday. Hope everyone is doing good today. I'm doing okay. I apologize for skipping Saturday. We actually had a contractor in here working on our doors and replacing those. But yeah, so that was all that was. I ended up playing quite a bit of Humankind this weekend, and yeah. Oh, something else that's been going on is that this Thursday. The school board here had someone step down, and they're going to select someone from a pool of 10 candidates to take up the position of the member who stepped down from the school board. I am one of the candidates that's in there, and so I'll have to go there, and they're going to ask us a few questions to listen to our response. And I think on that Monday on the school board, on the actual school board meeting, that they will announce it. So that's it's kind of nerve-wracking, kind of exciting. I don't honestly expect I'm going to be selected. I'm a little bit more radical than definitely some of the school board would be partial to. And actually, we're going to cover a post, which is going to be, I bet, it is very important for people in our district, especially people of color. And the first article will go over a lawsuit that was filed against our school district, and they had to pay 800 and some thousand dollars, also $900,000 to this young lady who was a victim of racism and assault by other students. So, and that's it's pretty horrible, that this stuff exists. But I am in the process of actually I had a post started to explain how racism and bullying exists and what we need to do about it, from the standpoint of a school district. But there's a lot to that. So what I'm doing today, Lexi, how you doing, man? Welcome. How is your week so far? And I'm currently just putting together a post kind of highlighting the sort of things that we need to do to deal with racism and bullying in the schools. It's basically a summation of my macro policies that you find here. And yeah, hopefully that will get me at least a little bit of notice, at least the way I'm framing it and so on. Hopefully I can get that done. God, I have to get it done tomorrow, so I can at least put it out there on my website and stuff like that. Boring and stressful at the same time. Yeah. Life under capitalism is stressful. It's traumatic, and yes, definitely boring too, especially under a pandemic and all that sort of stuff. Well, I'm glad things are, well, the same, I guess. Of how the election German will turn out for us. Oh, which election do you guys have? Is it like for president and stuff, or is it for other people? Yeah, I don't follow any European stuff at all, really. We don't have a presidential election, parliamentary election, and they select the prime minister, right? Yeah, I think that's the way Canada is too, and that's something that we need to go to as well. A unicameral legislative body with proportional representation. And that would be just a massive change for our country, because we got the two houses. Okay, good. Yeah, I've got the bicameral body, and first past the poll wins sort of garbage going on. Yeah, our country needs a whole constitutional rewrite, and it needs to be done, but I can't imagine it going well in the sort of environment that we have currently in the United States. And it's pretty It's pretty horrific what's going on here, and the things that have been allowed to happen, or have been, happening with Trump and January 6th and climate change, all this other sort of garbage going on. Just having our country actually create a constitution that isn't totally authoritarian is, I don't see that. I don't see that ever happening, unfortunately. But that is the level of change that we need in this country. We need a brand new constitution, because it is the source of a lot of our problems. It is the source of our two-party system, because of the way that presidential election works. And all the other elections too, because they're all lacking proportional representation, all that sort of stuff. Anyhow, yeah. America sucks. America sucks long time. What are your thoughts on which party is going to win? Is it going to be good for you and the rest of the world, or bad? It might look like the CDU finally gets thrown out of government. Is that good or bad? I don't know what the CDU is. Compact Disc University? Central Divestment Uniformity? Current Diploma Unitard? CD, I'm assuming they're conservative by the way you're phrasing. Isn't Angela Merkel the prime minister? Well, the SOC Dems are leading the polls right now. If lucky, there might be a coalition between them, the Greens and the Socialists. Yep. Our conservatives. Okay, good. Okay, good. Makes sense. Yeah, SOC Dems and Greens definitely work well together, and the Socialists. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, and it's nice that is a thing, whereas in our country, we've got garbage and garbage, and they're all working against us. Well, hopefully, I hope for you and the rest of the world and Germany that CDU gets the boot, das Boot, because conservatism is bad. It is inherently sociopathic and just bad in general. Well, good luck. I wish you luck the next 4 days. That'll be, what? Advanced math here. Today is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Saturday? You have elections on Saturday? Or is it on Friday and then the results are on Saturday? Must be election on Friday and then results on Saturday then. She won't be the PM anymore after the next election. And the next chancellor candidates are literally the worst. Oh, really? I'm sorry. Oh. So many scandals? Oh. Yeah, Sunday. Okay. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, there we go. I can't do math even on my fingers. That's sad. I'm an American. Durr. Okay. Election is Sunday, and results are Sunday evening. Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, at least it's on a weekend. My thought is, in my electoral reform, is we have the election start on Friday and then end on, Sunday, and then give results on Monday. That way, at least, outside of early voting and that sort of thing, that you've got the whole fucking weekend, to vote, and not just one day. Getting everyone in one day is just, you're asking for problems. But cool. At least it's on a weekend for you guys. That's a good thing. Very, very good. All right. Well, capitalism, corruption, that kind of goes, hand in hand and all that. Sorry to hear it. Hopefully something good will come of it for you. We have to deal with Biden here in the complete, I don't want to say incompetence. They're very competent at doing what it is they're doing, which is nothing. And that is what they said was going to happen, and that is what they're doing. So they're very good at doing nothing and making sure no progress gets done. Go have elections on a Sunday so everyone can vote and doesn't have to be stressed out about work and stuff. Okay, yeah. Yeah, good. That's the way it should be. That is exactly the way it should be. I mean, our country is still holding on to, that the Tuesday, might even be in the Constitution. Tuesday, because everyone's at market on Tuesday during the, during the 1700s or some shit like that. So, yeah, it'd be nice to have our Constitution and our electoral laws catch up to reality here. Yeah. Early voting, 30 days, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday for voting. For normal in-person voting is the way we should do it. Yeah, good for you. Europe, you guys got a lot more going, a lot more brains than we do. Here in the United States, all we have is the dollar. In a one-party system. Ugh. All right. Now, one of my friends posted about he posted about polling locations, and he's saying that everyone should have to wait the same amount of time to vote as the slowest polling location. Which something to be said for that, but ultimately we need to undo the we need to reenact the Voting Rights Act, which was gutted by the Supreme Court, and then have that apply to all of the states, not just the southern states, because voter suppression happens in every single state. Because as long as conservatives exist, voter suppression most assuredly is going to be a thing we have to deal with. Not that, Democrats don't do their share. They do their share too, but at least Republicans are overt about it. And, the Democrats are more looking at making sure the Greens and third parties aren't able to get on the stage. They even filed lawsuits last election to keep the Greens off the ballot. It's horrific. Horrific! Wrong with the U.S. other than capitalism. That's really what it's all about, honestly. Capitalism, as we talk here, is the primary driver of it. When did it begin, honestly? We can start with Reagan, I suppose. But, we'll start with World War II. In World War I, World War II. Most likely World War II, if we go back that far, when the United States became a world power, is when the sociopathy and, the United States becoming a global power really hit. I haven't really studied this to know for sure, but I expect that's kind of where the major genesis started. Because we've got, FDR? Yeah, FDR was president, and he realigned the entire industry of this country for war. And a lot of these companies made shitloads of money off it. We had an article covering that exact thing. No, it was I read on stream, Major General Smedley Butler's War is a Racket, and he was explicitly talking about how all these companies made shitloads of money during World War I when he wrote this. Or after World War I when he wrote this about the war profiteering during World War I. Yeah, so maybe, well, honestly, it went wrong at the beginning, right? Because slavery, I mean, the total, dehumanization and the sociopath, the pure psychopathy required to, sustain a government and a society whose values allows slavery to be a thing. And of course, misogyny with women, right? The Constitution was classist, racist, and misogynist all at once. I mean, it's all in there. And we've been fucked up from the very beginning. And we've been fighting against those sorts of things for our whole history. Like, women died and others died to get the right to vote. Indigenous people had to die to get the right to vote. Unions dying, labor movement. Every single country is fucked up because of the horrors of capitalism. And it starts from the very beginning. Some just more than other. I suspect that the world wars had a large part of how we became even more messed up. Plus our geographical isolation. I think that has a lot more to do with it as well. It makes us much more isolated, not just physically, but also mentally as well. If you look at the the ability for right wingers to engage in othering, or seeing South Americans as enemies and everyone else as enemies, it's because we don't have direct access to them. They're people that are far away, and they don't, it's easy to call them the enemy when they're not around you and they're not an integral part of your country. Whereas if we're in the middle of Europe, they're everywhere. And the othering is all over, because and everyone can travel everywhere with the trains and stuff like that. And I talked about I was in Belarus the first time. I got to speak at an English class at the university there, because the friend who I was visiting, her sister's best friend, was an English teacher there. And they asked kind of about why Americans don't speak other languages. And part of that reason is, as I said, geographic isolation. We don't have a strong need for it, whereas in Europe, it's super useful. Here, it's, Spanish. Speaking of enemy, I am my own enemy. I need to sleep. Okay, dude. Thanks for stopping by, dude. Get some sleep. Sleep is your friend. I'm fortunately getting enough of it with CBD oil. Thanks so much for stopping by, dude. Get some sleep. Good luck in the election. I'll be thinking about you on Sunday. Pray for good things. So yeah, the geographical isolation is part of that, why we don't speak many other languages. Also, when we get into the American exceptionalism, especially following World War II and World War I, especially World War II, that really drove that in, and geographical isolation plus the toxic levels of exceptionalism and nationalism has contributed to that sort of a thing. Okay. So let us get this started then. Any other questions or comments, suggestions before I get started? So this posted like 6 hours ago. And this is in my school district. I have a daughter, goes here. And so this kind of does matter to me how this turns out. I'm also running for school board too, as I talked about as well. So this is going to be important. It's going to be very important. So let's go through this. The lawsuit, I think, was originally filed in January of 2020. So a little over a year and a half ago or something like that. Baraboo School District settles for $862,500 with former student alleging racism and sexual assaults. Dacia Banks, 18. Okay. I shared this, right? I don't think I did. Let me share this. Otherwise, I'm bad. Bad Twitcher, not sharing links. There we go. The Baraboo School District earlier this month settled a lawsuit brought by one of its former students who said the district ignored years of complaints by her and her mother about multiple sexual assaults and a pattern of racial discrimination. The district agreed to pay Dacia Banks, 18, and her legal team $862,500, according to documents reviewed by the Wisconsin State Journal, confirming the settlement. Mark Thompson of Gingras, Thompson and Wachs, who represented Banks in the case, called the settlement historic and one of the largest in Wisconsin for a K-12 lawsuit involving Title VI and Title IX, the two federal laws protecting students from racial and sexual harassment and discrimination. A Baraboo School District spokesperson declined to comment beyond confirming the matter has been resolved. Documents show the district did not admit liability in the case, which is common for school districts when reaching settlement agreements. It's like a wake-up call to other schools, especially those that are in smaller towns, to make changes and educate themselves because the world is getting more diverse, Banks said in an interview on Monday. I want to move on from Baraboo, but I want to use my story and my voice to help people going through a similar situation who don't have anyone to talk to or relate to with that. I wonder if I can get a hold of her and talk to her about this. That would be interesting. Maybe even have her on stream. Keep that in mind. Banks moved to Madison with her mother in 2019 and graduated from Madison East High School earlier this year. The lawsuit filed in early 2020 outlined a pattern of racist taunts and harassment directed at Banks by other students beginning in the first grade, when she was teased about the texture of her hair and skin color and continuing on through her freshman year. The Bankses moved away twice during that time because of the racial harassment, but family circumstances brought them back both times. And this is, the cruelty of kids. This is something we can't address in our school system, and this is something that I talk about in my post to be. But again, this sociopathy, this othering, is something that's very inherent to capitalism, inherent to our world because of the toxic individualism that is inherent to capitalism. So honestly, we have to spend a lot of our time in rearranging or adding to our curriculum to create ways to help deal with the sociopathy and the othering that is inherent to capitalism. Banks, a minor at the time the suit was filed, agreed to be named in court documents. The decision drew attention and admiration from some her age who thanked her for speaking out. But she also received threats and harassment from former classmates. The Baraboo School District, which educates about 3,000 students an hour north of Madison, is overwhelmingly white. True statement. About 10% of students identify as Black, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, and biracial. Yeah, we do have an Indian tribe here, the Ho-Chunk. So we definitely have that. In one example cited in the complaint, Banks received an anonymous letter in her gym locker calling her a slut and using the N-word. The school administrator declined to investigate. In another alleged incident, Banks was shoved in a locker but was the only one who received a punishment. The complaint includes multiple instances in which Banks and her mother, who became a district employee during Banks' 8th grade year, hoping her presence would change the dynamic, were subjected to racial slurs. For example, Banks heard one white male student ask another if it was a hate crime to slap a black girl. Oh my God. The suit also alleges administrators tolerated students flying or wearing items depicting the Confederate flag. Okay, well, that is a freedom of speech issue. I'm not sure how that would land. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want that to be done for obvious reasons, but I think that's a freedom of speech thing. Although I think they could probably set that as a policy for their clothing policy or something like that. Not sure how those two things intersect, freedom of speech and then the policy, stuff like that. During Banks' freshman year, a male classmate who staff knew had been sexually harassing and abusing other students began sexually assaulting Banks, according to the lawsuit. The assaults occurred 2 or 3 times per week during a class the two shared and included inappropriate touching, groping, and exposure. Jesus. The boy was charged with 4th-degree sexual assault and received probation. Dacia Banks was so fortunate to have a mother who paid attention and raised all the complaints of racial and sexual harassment and abuse in a timely manner, Thompson said. What's very clear is that these issues are rising across our state, and school districts are going to have to teach true history and enforce Title VI, which requires that every child be afforded a safe and enjoyable education. Yeah, true history. This is something very important. I have this in my policies. Let's see. Here we go. Yep. So here, we should also not be whitewashing history or preventing minorities of all types from being talked about. Believe it or not, women, people of color, sexual minorities, and other non-Christians have made incredible contributions to human progress and history. We need to be drawing from the entirety of human history and all who have contributed to it for better and worse. Yeah, this is exactly right. And this is part of the ways that we can help combat racism. Make sure that in our history books that we talk about everyone who's contributed to it. Black people, Hispanic, gay people, and the whole gamut of the entire breadth of human expression. This is very, very right. Banks and their lawyers declined to share how much of the settlement covers attorney's fees and how much banks received. The 19-year-old still suffers from mental health problems that she associates with her decade in Baraboo schools. Her anxiety led her to develop an eating disorder. Fuck. That she said caused her to lose 45 pounds in a matter of months. Problems just didn't go away after we moved, she said. I'm still going through this. Banks is headed to Houston in January. She plans to study nursing at Texas Southern University, one of the largest historically black universities in the country. And I expect part of it's because that's the only place where she feels safe, where there's it's mostly black people. And that's a sad thing that our country has allowed that to happen. Now I have a daughter who is dealing with some issues with the boy and consent. And teaching, that's some of the things we need to teach. We need to teach about consent. That's huge. And also teaching, well, let me just bring it up here. Right here. So teaching mindfulness, meditation, empathy, and compassion, right, is key. Yoga is another one of those things that's good. Getting into nonviolent communication, conflict resolution, comparative anthropology will be useful for exposing white people to multiple different sorts of, different cultures around the world is very huge. Emphasize global history and achievements and not just national history and achievements. We also need to ensure that excluded minorities such as women in our horrifically patriarchal society and all people of color, as well as other minorities, are included as well. I need to copy this into my post. Right, you need to create connections to other schools across the globe so that you can get that diversity. Right, those are different ways of increasing the diversity within the school system to help reduce the racism inherent to the system. Yeah, I wonder if I can get a hold of her. This will be interesting. Okay, so there's that. Any questions, comments, or suggestions on this? It's so bad that this happens, and that the parents, yeah. Again, when I get into how bullying and racism isn't the problem in and of itself, it is a symptom of the much larger problem of inequality, of the sociopathy inherent with monetary systems and systems of exchange that make these sorts of symptoms, bullying and racism, to become a thing. And as I was writing about that, when children come into the school, they don't live in the bubble of the school. They have a whole life outside of school, and they bring that with them. We're talking the problems with their parents, the problems with media, problems with, all the things that the poverty, class inequality, dealing with all the stuff of just life in general that their parents have to deal with that are inflicted upon the children, and then they bring that with them. If their parent is a racist right-winger, well, their child most likely will be, and they're going to bring that into the school system. How do you prevent that? And that's part of the reason why when school districts don't engage in activism outside the school district, that they're kind of falling short, or they're frankly screwing over their community. I mean, when you look at the things that cause problems like this, it's inequality. And if they are not going, hey, state, city, county, state, we need to be looking at universal healthcare, universal education, right? Universal daycare, healthcare, universal education, minimum wage increases, and all this sort of stuff, that they're not really doing the sorts of things that, if they're not doing this, they're screwing their children over, because those are the things that will most strongly affect our children, because they bring that with them into the school system. Inequality is devastating. poverty literally creates brain damage and makes our children more susceptible to depression and suicide and all sorts of things like that. And it's harder than hell to concentrate on schoolwork when you're being bullied, or if you're hungry, or if you're worried about being teased or whatever, right? So, or if your parents can't, you're worried about being homeless or having something to eat. If you don't work on making sure that the family life is okay and that they're not struggling, well, they're bringing that with them, and that's going to affect them, and it just doesn't go away. And unfortunately, our school districts don't really work that way. And that's part of what I definitely would advocate for. And obviously, I've got a friend of mine who's kind of talks to me about this stuff a little bit. He said, of course, this will be very polarizing, so it's never going to work. Well, you're right. It will be very polarizing, because then we're specifically saying universal health care, and then the right is going to go, fuck universal health care, blah, 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 blah. Then we have to have that conversation and make that case why universal health care is why we need to do it. And there's plenty of reasons why you need to do it. Universal education, right? You have to make that case. Of course, it's going to be a shitstorm, but it's a shitstorm that'll create a conversation that hopefully will end up good. It will be a shitstorm, but it needs to be done. But if every single district did this, we could make a lot more progress on figuring out how to make the case to make these things work. We could raise awareness, and then district by district, make sure universal health care gets passed, and so on and so forth. All right, there's that. All right, next one. This one's talking about the abortion law that went up in Texas that outlawed any abortion beyond 6 weeks. Basically, once you can hear the heartbeat, a fetal heartbeat law, then abortions are now illegal. So now what we have here, lawsuits are filed against a Texas doctor who said he performed an abortion. The Arkansas man, Oscar Stilley, who was described in the complaint as a disbarred and disgraced lawyer, said in an interview that he had filed the lawsuit against a Texas doctor who publicly wrote about performing an abortion to test the provision of the law. The Supreme Court declined to stop the law, which has effectively ended most abortions in the state since going into effect this month. There's also some state or some hospital that's outside of Texas that said, hey, we won't turn anyone away for an abortion. Which is good. The Supreme Court declined to stop the law, which has effectively ended most abortions in the state since going into effect this month. The law bars enforcement by state officials, a novel maneuver aimed at circumventing judicial review, and instead relies on citizens to file legal claims against abortion providers or anyone suspected of aiding or abetting an abortion. Successful suits can bring the plaintiffs awards of at least $10,000. Again, we're making people basically kind of deputizing the masses. Proponents of the law and the anti-abortion activists have been satisfied that the threat of legal action appeared to stop most abortions in Texas. Some feared that the openness of the law, allowing anyone to file suit, could result in a first test case that was unfavorable to their cause. Mr. Stilley said he was not trying to halt abortions by Dr. Alan Braid, a San Antonio physician who wrote in the Washington Post on Saturday that he had violated the Texas law, which prohibits abortions after cardiac activity is detected, or roughly 6 weeks into pregnancy. I'm not pro-life, Mr. Stilley, 58, said in an interview. The thing that I'm trying to vindicate here is the law. We pride ourselves on being a nation of laws. What's the law? Just because something is legal doesn't mean it's right? The Holocaust was legal, slavery is legal, blah, 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 right? Just because we're a nation of laws doesn't mean any of the fucking laws are at all just. The Justice Department has sued Texas over the law, known as Senate Bill 8, and argued in an emergency motion last week that the state adopted the measure to prevent women from exercising their constitutional rights. It is settled constitutional law that a state may not prohibit any woman from making the ultimate decision to terminate her pregnancy before viability, the department said in the lawsuit, referring to the standards set in the 1973 landmark case Roe v. Wade. But Texas has done just that. Dr. Braid was also sued on Monday by an Illinois man, Felipe N. Gomez, who described himself in his complaint as a pro-choice plaintiff. Mr. Gomez cannot be immediately reached for comment about his lawsuit, which was earlier reported by KSAT News in San Antonio. Both suits were filed in state court in San Antonio, and both men are representing themselves. Neither of these lawsuits are valid attempts to save innocent human lives, said John Sego, legislative director for Texas Right to Life, the state's largest anti-abortion group, which lobbied for the new abortion law. Both cases are self-serving legal stunts, abusing the cause of action created in the Texas Heartbeat Act for their own purposes. Well, if the guy said he did an abortion, well, I mean, anyone can go ahead and file suit against him. I mean, there's nothing... Ugh. He added that he and others at Texas Right to Life believe Braid published his op-ed intending to attract imprudent lawsuits. Okay, I could believe that. The Center for Reproductive Rights, an abortion rights group that represents Dr. Braid, said he had not been formally served and declined to make himself available for an interview. In a statement, the group's senior counsel, Mark Heron, said the Texas law says that any person can sue over a violation. We are starting to see that happen, including by out-of-state claimants. Oh, of course. Of course. And that's... oh, my God. And this whole thing drives me nuts. I mean, for obvious reasons there, but I mean, people who get to file a suit are not an aggrieved party. They had no party to what is going on. They have no standing to draw a lawsuit, although the law does, I suppose, give them standing, but if it were a normal law, they wouldn't have standing to do this. They wouldn't be able to file a suit because they have nothing to do with anything. In his opinion essay for The Post, Dr. Braid said he had decided to violate the Texas law, which makes no exceptions for rape or incest, out of a firm belief in abortion rights. I have daughters, granddaughters, and nieces. I believe abortion is an essential part of healthcare, he wrote. I've spent the past 50 years treating and helping patients. I can't just sit back and watch us return to 1972. Mr. Braid wrote that on the morning of September 6th, he had provided an abortion to a woman who, though still in her first trimester, was beyond the state's new limit. After reading that, Mr. Stilley said he decided to file suit. His complaint includes a description of his own legal troubles, which he said included a federal conviction for tax evasion and conspiracy. He was released to home confinement after a decade in prison. Mr. Stilley said in the interview that he believed in a woman's right not to have an unwanted child, and that because his lawsuit was a win-win for him, he rushed to file it. I'm going to get an answer either way, he said. If this is a free-for-all and it's $10,000, I want my $10,000. And yes, I do aim to collect. That's just crazy stuff. Comes the wild, wild west. So messed up. Texas is such a messed up state. Conservatism is messed up. All right, so there's that. Questions, comments, suggestions on that before moving on? Hopefully it turns out that this stupid law gets overturned, because that is ultimately what has to happen. Anything? See, this next one is pretty interesting. Nope, I didn't want that. Okay. So this one, Elon Musk is angry about a new bill that includes a $4,500 tax incentive for electric vehicles built by companies with unions. Now, in my policies, we talk about this sort of a thing, specifically looking at the economies for a common good. So, passing laws which specifically work like this is what we should be doing. And this will help incentivize companies like Tesla, which Musk owns, who has been anti-union and has specifically worked against unions, formations of unions in his company. Laws like this can help incentivize these companies to stop being a bunch of fuckheads and allow the union to happen. Because Musk is all about getting his, obviously having people buy his cars, but trying to get them as cheap as possible. And the only way that's going to happen now is if they unionize. So this is amazing. I like this. More of this shit needs to happen. Again, $15 minimum wage in your company's unionized, you've got, healthcare for everyone, or whatever, minimum sick time, minimum vacation for everyone, and all that sort of stuff. You could do that all and help force this sort of a thing as well. All right. Democratic House lawmakers on Friday put forward a bill that would give a $4,500 tax incentive to consumers buying electric vehicles assembled at U.S. factories with a union. Okay, this is doubly good. Musk tweeted on Sunday that the bill had been engineered by lobbyists for Ford and the United Auto Workers Union. This is written by Ford UAW lobbyists as they make their electric cars in Mexico. Not obvious how this serves American taxpayers. Okay, this doesn't make any sense. Who makes their car in Mexico? Wait. I mean, if Ford makes their cars in Mexico, this wouldn't apply to them. Or does it Tesla? Did they start a gigafactory there? No, they went to, where'd they go? Okay, so they do have a gigafactory in Mexico. Okay. Don't they have... They have to have American... they have one in Texas. Interesting. Okay, all right. So it looks like some of Tesla's cars are made in Mexico. The Tesla billionaire tweeted linking to a Bloomberg article about Ford's production of Mustang. Oh no, so this is Mustang. And it's Mexico. Okay. Well, this is just one car in Mexico. His diversion here is kind of ludicrous. It's based on cars made in America with a union. Hadur. The 4,500 incentive could give an advantage to unionized U.S. automakers such as GM, Ford, and Chrysler, while Tesla, which has historically opposed unionization, could lose out. Yep. Musk did not provide any evidence of lobbying by Ford and UAW. The UAW spokesperson did not respond to Musk's comments when asked by Insider, but he highlighted a statement from UAW President Ray Curry praising the bill. Well, of course he would praise the bill. Ford did not immediately reply to Insider's request for comment. The bill also grants a $77,500 base consumer incentive for new electric vehicles sold in the U.S., and it would allow foreign-made cars to claim that incentive for 5 years. The provision would apply to Ford cars assembled in Mexico. Okay, so it's $7,500 and $4,500. Okay, well, Tesla stuff would do this. All Tesla has to do, all Elon Musk has to do is stop being a whiny little bitch and allow unions, and guess what? He isn't a fucking thing to complain about. In a follow-up tweet replying to a Twitter user who said President Joe Biden should be making American-made cars a priority, Musk said ahem and tagged the president's official account. There were already signs of tension between Tesla and the Biden administration over the company's anti-union stance. Biden held an event celebrating American electric vehicles in August. Tesla was notably absent. That's a little passive-aggressive. Musk tweeted at the time that it was odd that Tesla wasn't invited. Interesting. Foreign companies without U.S. unions would also lose out under the incentive. Toyota and Honda also opposed the bill. In statements on Saturday, Reuters reported, Toyota said the bill discriminated against American auto workers based on their choice not to unionize. Well, if the companies weren't so anti-union, then I'm sure they would all unionize. The bill is due to be voted by the House Ways and Means Committee on Tuesday, Reuters reported. Yeah, so this is interesting. I like what they're doing here. And this is the way they should do more laws to make sure that our companies which are less than ethical start conforming to more ethical standards for their company. And honestly, they should pass the law, much like my policies say, that it should be the assumption that it should be required that any company above a certain size is unionized, period. And if that is not the case, then they should be either shifted to a co-op or to an employee-owned business or something of that nature. That should be the default. So there you go there. I'll go and throw in my, so here's the Economies for Common Good. There's an amazing video on here. It was a TED Talk. If you have not watched this yet, please take the time and watch this. This is a really good video. By Christian Fells, I think his name is. Yeah, talking about the common good balance sheet. And this gets into economics and how people do things. This also gets into minimum wage and maximum wage. This is kind of where I partially got my maximum wage idea, or at least a reinforcement is from this video. It's a really good video. Really good video. So please do read that. All right. Questions, comments, suggestions on that. Like it, hate it. Elon Musk can suck it. What do you got? I like it. I love it. I want some more of it. All right, we will move on. Now we're getting to some science and tech stuff. Usually I don't cover this stuff so much until we get through a bunch of other things. Climate change, capitalism, coronavirus, the 3 C's. All right. So here, transparent wood material could be the window of tomorrow. This is from November of 2020, so this is a little bit old, last year. Almost a year ago. You kind of see it here. Is that amazing? Looks like there might be a slight tinge to it. While the smartphone industry is mastering flexible screens, Forest Products Laboratory researcher Juyong Zhu, in collaboration with colleagues from the University of Maryland and the University of Colorado, has developed a transparent wood material that can be used in a variety of industries. This material is seen as a potential replacement for glass, currently used in construction in nearly every way. If they could do this at scale, and it's made out of wood, and it's at least more resilient than glasses, this could be a sustainable way to do this, which would be mind-blowing. I'd really like to see the statistics on how well this works. New transparent material looks like glass but is made of entirely of wood. It is made from the wood of the balsa tree, a tree of the flowering plant family. Grows very fast and can reach a height of 30 meters. Its wood has been widely used in fields such as model assembly, packaging, insulation, and floating equipment. The wood of the species is treated at room temperature, oxidizing in a special bleaching bath that bleaches it of nearly all visibility. The wood is then penetrated with a synthetic polymer called polyvinyl alcohol, PVA, creating a product that is virtually transparent. Okay, so they bleach all the stuff out, leaving the fibrous scaffolding, and then they throw in PVA. Okay, so that's not as interesting then. Right, because this is problematic from a sustainability standpoint, right? Okay, biodegradable, non-toxic. Okay, not so bad then, I guess. Okay, less bad, I guess. Wood becomes transparent like glass, but also has the properties of plastic. It bends upon impact and crumbles like wood instead of breaking into sharp pieces like glass. According to the developers, the new material is stronger than ordinary glass, safer, more economical, and more efficient in terms of thermal protection. The researcher team also noted in their paper that heat easily transfers through the conventional glass, especially single pane, and amounts to higher energy bills when it escapes during cold weather and pours in when it's warm. Glass production and construction also comes with a heavy carbon footprint. Replacing conventional glass with wood glass can significantly reduce energy consumption and CO2 emissions. The process of making new materials is also more environmentally friendly. At present, the researchers are focusing primarily on the use of transparent wood in construction. Due to the high thermal efficiency of this material, it is ideal for windows. It can also be potentially used in the automotive industry, the smartphone industry, and other industries as well. Interesting. So this could be something good, though having the PVA as a part of it, I think is going to be an issue long term for sustainability, but I guess we'll see. All right, here's another one from Inceptive Mind, right? Yep. But this one is from this year, from July. World's first 3D printed steel footbridge unveiled in Amsterdam. Look at that there. Get a little bit bigger. Looks like it's about 2 people across. I would... It looks pretty. I'd like to see it at least 3 or 4 people across. This looks like it gets kind of small in the center here. It's hard to... Oh, here, it's definitely 2 people. Anyhow, larger is better. Construction technology continues to evolve, including the creation of a variety of infrastructures, including 3-dimensional prints. 3D printing allows you to create freeform structures in a single piece, which reduces the consumption of materials. Now, the world's first 3D printed steel structure, a living laboratory bridge, has been unveiled by a robot in Amsterdam. This pedestrian bridge with smart sensors will replace the old bridge under external restoration for the next 2 years. The 3D printed footbridge, which is over 4 years in the making, is the result of a unique collaboration between MX3D software company Autodesk, chief engineer Arup, steel giant ArcelorMittal, the city of Amsterdam, and the University of Twente, among others. MX3D made this design possible by turning welding robots with intelligent software into industrial 3D printers. The entire bridge is made of stainless steel and weighs 6,000 kilograms. The footbridge will be extensively tested by Imperial College London with the help of University of Twente before being installed. Using its vast network of installed sensors, researchers will measure, monitor, and analyze the performance of the novel 12-meter-long structure as it handles pedestrian traffic. The data collected will enable researchers and engineers to measure the bridge's health in real time, monitor how it changes over its lifespan, and understand how the public interacts with the 3D printed infrastructure. The data from the sensors will be put into a digital twin of the bridge, a computerized version that will imitate the physical bridge with growing accuracy in real time as sensor data comes in. The performance and behavior of the physical bridge will be tested against the twin, which will help answer questions about the long-term behavior of 3D printed steel, as well as its use in real-world settings and in future novel construction projects. The data captured from the 3D printed footbridge will be made available to other researchers worldwide who want to work with the Turing researchers in analyzing the data. Now the bridge is unveiled. The researchers will begin to collect data in real time to monitor how it behaves. Yeah, this is pretty. God, it's hard to believe that's stainless steel. I wonder if there's any other pictures of this Amsterdam stainless steel bridge. Let's check this out. So look at that spiral. It's just pretty. Okay, so there's the bot going to town. There's plenty of room there. All right, there you go. So, yeah, it's interesting that this has flourishes and stuff on it, to make it look very aesthetically pleasing. You look at the Venus project and kind of how Jock talks about things. To me, I get the impression that this sort of stuff he envisions it's not going to be done, because I think he would consider this waste, right? Because it's not needed. It uses extra material and that sort of thing. He's much more utilitarian when it comes to talking about construction and that sort of thing. And to me, I see this being more the norm, that, you know, just because it's a bridge, right? It's utilitarian. It can also be beautiful as well. And so, yeah. There you go. There's that. Thoughts? Anybody? All right. Just a second here. All right, this is from 4 days ago. Chernobyl's blown up reactor 4 just woke up. That's a hell of a hangover. And there's a game that I think that's in beta still, that's about a story that takes place within the rad zone of Chernobyl. I saw someone playing the game in beta on YouTube, which is kind of interesting. All right. The nuclear disaster that occurred in 1986 will forever be remembered, but the world will soon have a reminder of the events as the zone, for some reason, yet unexplained by scientists, is becoming more radioactive. For those who may not be aware of the incident, here's an article. Yeah. to get you up to speed. Chernobyl will never be a problem. Underneath Reactor 4, there is still nuclear fuel that is active and which will take around 20,000 years for it to deplete. The uranium is too radioactive for anyone to live in the city, and since the incident, the European Union had created a shield around the reactor which should not allow for the radioactive rays to come out. Chernobyl officials presumed any criticality risk would fade when the massive new safe confinement was slid over the shelter in November 2016. The $1.5 billion structure was meant to seal off the shelter so it could be stabilized and eventually dismantled. However, many other parts around Chernobyl have also been affected due to prolonged exposure, some more than others, and many of them have not been contained as they were not presenting any major radioactive activity until now. Neil Hyatt, a nuclear chemist from the University of Sheffield, had mentioned that there is a possibility for the uranium fuel to reignite on its own. Okay. Hyatt also offered a simple explanation on how this is possible. Just like charcoal can reignite in a barbecue, so can nuclear materials that have once been ignited. He, as well as a handful of nuclear chemists, have mentioned previously that the possibility of the uranium from Chernobyl to reignite. Okay, but the scientists from Ukraine that are responsible for managing the nuclear activity within the vicinity never really listened until now. Dun 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 dun. Okay. So most likely what's just happening is just as the stuff is decaying, it's decaying into something that has a much higher level of radioactivity from it. Scientists from Ukraine have placed many sensors around Reactor 4 that constantly monitor the level of radioactivity. Recently, those sensors have detected a constant increase in the level of radioactivity. It seems that this radioactivity is coming from an unreachable chamber from underneath Reactor 4 that has been blocked since the night of the explosion on the 26th of April, 1986. What could be causing this? The experts from Ukraine don't really understand why this is happening, although they do have a hypothesis. Water is used to start the fission process within nuclear materials. This makes the nuclear materials release energy that the nuclear reactor can be maintained under control. Okay, well it's not technically correct. Water is a moderator. It doesn't, okay. I suppose you could say it doesn't really start the fission, because fission is always happening, right? Because radioactive materials are radioactive because they have a half-life, right? Because they're always doing it, at whatever rate they're doing it based on whatever element they are. So how water accelerates this is because water as a moderator, its job is as a moderator is to reflect neutrons back in towards the radioactive stuff to make sure that we try and maximize, the fission process. So instead of all these neutrons escaping, going everywhere else and getting other things radioactive, the water acts as a reflector. It reflects it back into the nuclear fuel to help accelerate the fission process, make sure more happens. Because if neutrons escape, less fission. Neutrons get reflected back in, more fusion. It's pretty simple. But in this instance, the experts are afraid they will not be able to control it. Another hypothesis is that since Reactor 4 has been completely shielded, no water from the rain was able to reach the nuclear fuel. The water from rain may have been what kept the nuclear material under control. With no water, the nuclear fuel may be at risk of overheating, leading to another nuclear disaster. Now, I get people. This is, I know it's an out-of-date example in nuclear reactors now today. I've learned, they're 5th gen or whatever. But this is ultimately the issue that we have to deal with. If anything happens to a reactor, 5th gen, 6th, 10th gen, or whatever, then this is the bullshit we have to deal with. Now, it's obviously not going to be, hopefully not going to be this bad, but still, as long as there's radioactivity, you are never, ever safe. Ever. There may be another reason for this constant increase in radioactivity. What has been mentioned above are only hypotheses. Maybe something totally different is occurring under reactor 4 or within the nuclear material left inside. This is something that definitely should ring some alarm bells in order to prepare for the worst sort of situation, and hopefully the world's smartest in the field of nuclear chemistry can come together to identify the problem and come up with a potential solution. Well, it's time to get a drone in there and to try and figure it out. Go drones. All right, there's that. Questions? Thoughts? Of course, it's concerning. And it's always going to be for thousands of years. That place is going to nuclear wasteland forever. Yay, nuclear! Woo! All right, now we're getting into some climate change. Thought I had more than that. No, okay, well, I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't covered yet. Actually, let me... Maybe... There's some articles here that I had wanted to cover, but I never had a chance to. Maybe it's way the hell over here. Okay, here we go. There's this. I'll pull this over here. Because this was prior to the election, I think, or just after it. Let's go ahead and check this out. All right, we'll go to this one next. All right, here we go. Okay, rain fell on Greenland's ice sheet for the first time ever known. Alarms should ring. This is from the 13th, week ago. Climate scientists believe that if Greenland continues to rapidly melt, tens of millions of people around the world could face yearly flooding and displacement by 2030. Many people believed he couldn't do it. Ski across the Greenland ice sheet, a vast, unmapped, high-elevation plateau of ice and snow. Madness! But Fridtjof Nansen, a young Norwegian, proved them wrong. In 1888, he and his small party went light and fast, unlike two large expeditions a few years before. And unlike the others, Nansen traveled from east to west, giving him no option of retreat to a safe base. It would be forward or die trying. He did it in 7 weeks, man-hauling his supplies and ascending to 8,900 feet elevation, where summertime temperatures dropped to minus 49 degrees Fahrenheit. Yikes. That was then, and this is now. Last month, for the first time in recorded history, rain fell on the highest point of the Greenland ice sheet. It hardly made news, but rain in a place historically defined by bitter cold portends a future that will alter coastlines around the world and drown entire cities. Bum, bum, bum. The Greenland ice sheet contains 4 times more ice than all of Earth's other glaciers and ice fields combined. Oh, holy balls. Outside Antarctica. Okay. The largest island in the world, Greenland, is more than 36,000 times the size of Manhattan, and ice covers most of it, in many places thousands of feet thick. As carbon dioxide and methane accumulate in our atmosphere, causing our planet to heat, the 6 warmest years on record have been the last 6. The ice sheet disintegrates. Greenland's lost more ice in the past decade than it did in the previous century. Massive summertime meltwater, river rivers now flow over the ice sheet where in Nansen's time no sign of surface water could be found. Yeah, I mean, we watched the video, right? It's in Discord of how we are right on track for the RCP 8.5, which is a 4.6 degree increase by 2100. And as I've been saying, you know, 200 to 300 years, there's basically all life on the planet is going to be extinct. Well, we're looking at 100 or 200 now, because as these ice sheets melt, that's just going to greatly increase the level of heat. And it's going to unleash carbon dioxide and all sorts of things into the environment. It's the end of the world as we know it. The people in Miami, Shanghai, Tokyo, Mumbai, Lagos, Bangkok, New York are not concerned. They should be. The Great Greenland ice melt is a climate crisis sword of Damocles for all coastal, low-lying, densely populated areas. No other single factor will probably contribute more to sea level rise over the next few decades. A consortium of climate scientists writing 2 years ago in Nature, a prestigious scientific journal, concluded that if Greenland continues to melt, in one bad case scenario after another, tens of millions of people could be in danger of yearly flooding and displacement by 2030, less than 9 years from now. And by the end of the century, when Antarctica, which contains vastly more ice than Greenland, also enters a phase of catastrophic melting, the number of annual flood-prone people could reach nearly 500 million. It's more than farewell, Miami. It's goodbye, Florida. The assumption that land will always last is no longer valid. Land is about the only thing that cannot fly away, the English novelist Anthony Trollope once observed. True, but it can go bone dry or drown, and both of which we are going to be suffering with. After Nansen's Greenland expedition, he oversaw the construction of a small wooden ship named Fram, or Forward, designed to enter the Arctic pack ice in an attempt to reach the North Pole. Later, he mentored the explorers Roald Amundsen, Robert Falcon Scott, and Ernst Shackleton. His final act, however, was his most inspiring. As High Commissioner for Refugees for the League of Nations, he devised a passport to repatriate thousands left homeless after the Great War and was awarded the 1922 Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, cool. Nansen did what humankind must do now. He transcended himself. He respected science and cared deeply for others. In the face of great challenges today, we can and must do the same. A good example is Jason Box, who Jeff Goodell, in his 2017 book, The Water Will Come, describes as a maverick scientist and Greenland ice junkie who got a lot of attention in 2012 when he publicly predicted just weeks before the summer melt season that Greenland would experience a record-breaking year for ice melt. Raised and educated in Colorado, Box suspected that soot from wildfires in the American West and Canada and from coal-fired power plants in the industrial north would enter the atmosphere and travel far. When it settled in Greenland, the soot would darken the ice sheet and make it absorb, not reflect solar energy. The result, the ice sheet would melt like gangbusters, which is exactly what has happened. Holy crap, people. I had no idea. 2014, Box was stunned to find the ice sheet so dark. He has since said that humanity's burning fossil fuels has probably set in motion nearly 70 feet of sea level rise. A bold prediction, not out of character for Box, who spent more than a year on the ice. I like ice because it's nature's thermometer, he told Goodell. It's not political. As the world heats up, ice melts. It's simple. It's the kind of science that everyone can understand. Well, almost everyone. While science endeavoring to avoid alarmism can be overly cautious, science isn't the problem. Disinformation and lack of political will are the problems. Well, why is the lack of political will there? Because Congress isn't being paid to solve the problems nor save humanity from extinction, right? Cover that all the time. Talk about it all the time here, right? To save the Greenland ice sheet in Florida, it will require a Nansen-esque transformation on steroids, something inspired by but much larger than Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal. To begin with, we need to elect representatives who respect science and accept the magnitude of what we are up against. If they do not, they must be defeated. It's time to put our planet first. Yeah, and I agree completely. This is Okay, I'll finish this because we're almost done. A little more than 1,000 years ago, back when the world seemed large and wondrous and unknown, the Vikings settled Greenland. For every one person alive on Earth back then, there are 25 today. Most of us trapped in a fossil fuel economy that has given us great prosperity, but now must be replaced. By what? By trains powered by wind, trucks powered by the sun, highways made of solar panels? Fantasy? No, they already exist and are just beginning. We are all on Greenland's ice sheet with Nansen now. It's forward or fail. No turning back. Yeah, and the article is exactly right. Ultimately, if we do not, and okay, she goes larger than Franklin Roosevelt, right? That's exactly right. It's exactly right. As I've been saying here on my channel, right? If Congress's bills aren't starting at 10 trillion, every single one of them or more, then they're voting for human extinction. And that's what they are doing. And I talk about that in my policies too, right? We need a policy that meets the level of crisis that we face. Something like that. There we go. But not only that, climate change needs to be specifically declared as a human extinction level event, because that is what is at stake here, human extinction. Either we act collectively as a globalized civilization to attack this environmental crisis, or we shall fall country by country and state by state into poverty, starvation, drought, chaos, revolution, and war. The clip-clap of the fall of the dominoes of capitalistic ecocide until the only thing that shall be heard is the thunderous roar of acidic windstorms over lifeless and dusty landscapes. The fall of humanity divided. And that's what I say in my policies. And there's this article here. I know we've covered this. Don't fuck off. Okay, we've covered it on stream. I don't remember much about it anymore. Okay, so there you go. Questions, comments, suggestions on this? I mean, it really, like, I was looking at the deal that Howie Hawkins had put a link to. Basically, it's like $27 trillion or something like that, and that's the level that we need to be talking here on for infrastructure for the United States. If you're not over 10 trillion as a starting point, you're fucking wasting our time. And 27, 30 trillion is a much better number, because we're talking getting off fossil fuels, getting on sustainable energy, and so on and so forth. And like I talk about here, right? That, yeah, I think I was talking about this earlier on stream, but if the United States was to subsidize tidal and geothermal, which is what we need to be using for our base load sustainable energy, then for every coal plant, depending on the size, we could have like 9 geothermal plants into one average coal plant, and basically getting 9 times the power out of that space, while getting rid of all the fossil fuels. And a way this can be done, one of the big reasons why geothermal doesn't spread so much is because it is super fucking expensive to get those holes drilled to see whether or not it's a good place to do geothermal, or at least to get deep enough that they can do geothermal. If the United States government was to subsidize that, with part of that $27 trillion, $30 trillion of a Green New Deal package, then we can have a shitload more geothermal plants out there. And the same, again, also we need to throw trillions into researching and putting together tidal and wave sources as well, because those aren't or whirlpool, various water-based methods of creating sustainable energy. I mean, it's solar and wind, it's all well and good, but as the issue that they have with them is that, of course, it's intermittent. It's not always there. And then you also have to have the additional resources spent on batteries, right? So they're not solar, wind aren't base load power, they're intermittent power, but we need to do tidal, wave, and geothermal for base load power, and then use solar and wind as intermittent power, much like we're pretty much doing now. Now we are turning that into sort of a baseload power by using batteries, but it requires batteries. Now again, I think I'm pretty sure I talked about this earlier. A way to allow for solar and wind to be base load is if we shift to like high altitude wind turbines or power satellites. That's one way to do solar and wind as baseload power, not the normal. Of course, those are much more expensive than the stuff that's actually on the ground. Okay, me babbling on this. We're screwed. That's just the way it's going to be. Let's go over here. Why the fuck is this doing this? Oh. There you go, fuck off. Okay, so. Do we want to do this one next? Okay. You know what? Let's go over here instead. This is not one that I read. This is from April, so this is after the election, when they were looking at bills. No. And yeah, and this is something we have forgotten as so care has always been infrastructure. And back in the 60s and something like that, the minimum wage was meant to be living wage so that one person could work and take care of his family and go to school, get a house and all that sort of stuff. And it was expected, with the original minimum wage and of that time that the man was going to work and then the woman would stay at home with the kids, sort of a thing, right? So care has always been infrastructure, at least as back as far as minimum wage. And that is something we have lost. And basically the rise of Reagan, but also definitely has been doubled down upon by the neoliberalism, by the Clintons. All right, care has always been infrastructure. Yeah, and this they're looking at the American Jobs Plan. Come on, get bigger. All right, the emerging debate over whether care is infrastructure isn't new or surprising. The question, what is infrastructure, was triggered by President Biden's announcement that the American Jobs Plan includes $40 billion investment to expand Medicaid coverage of home and community-based services for people with disabilities and older adults, and to improve wages and working conditions for the nation's direct care workforce. Politico went so far as to say that it's silly to call care infrastructure, as no previous politician who put forward a similar caregiving proposal has done so under the guise of infrastructure spending. Well, again, like I talked about earlier, the minimum wage is kind of based off this premise. They didn't say it without saying it because of misogyny, was kind of the thing there, right? But it was implied. That's precisely the point, and what makes the American Jobs Plan the new and bold plan we need. Care has always been infrastructure, from childcare to paid leave to home to community-based services. Care is a need shared by all at some point in our lives and is fundamental to enabling economic activity. And of course, right, that the rich can afford it, but us plebes, us peasants, we can just fucking suffer without it. Because we are peasants. But it's never before been seen or valued as such in our political discourse, because women and women of color have shouldered the work of our care economy. Yep, again, misogyny. Today, the work of care as a profession falls overwhelmingly on women. 91.5% of domestic workers, nannies, house cleaners, and home care workers are women. 86% of direct care workers are women, and 61% of family caregivers are women. The wages for care work mirror the devaluation of unpaid family care. The median hourly wage for a domestic worker is $12 $12 an hour, and the median wage for home care workers, who make up the majority of domestic workers, is $11.89 for non-agency workers and $12.08 for agency-based workers. And there was I should probably find this. I'm pretty sure I have it somewhere. They did kind of we read the article that kind of said how much a mother would get paid for all the things that she does. Now, that thing was grossly overdone because they were looking at professional this, professional that, and a wife, a husband or wife who stays home with the kids is not a profession in any of those, necessarily in any of those things. Maybe a profession in one, but not in every single aspect of home care. They went a little fucking bonkers on that. But the point being, within the context of this article, that taking care of the family and so on requires a lot of work and a lot of expertise, especially within the family, to do all that sort of stuff. And it requires time. It's not just shopping just doesn't get magically done. The bills just don't magically get paid, right? Meals just don't get magically made. Someone does those things. The devaluing of the profession and the persistent low wages has deep roots in racism and the legacy of slavery. The centuries-long exploitation of black women's domestic labor, including enslaved African women, was cemented by the exclusion of domestic workers, including home care workers, from the foundational labor laws that Congress enacted as a part of the New Deal in the 1930s. Today, just over half, 52.4%, of the domestic workforce are Black, Latinx, or Asian American Pacific Islander women, including 61.3% of agency-based home care workers. In particular, Black women make up a little over a tenth of all women workers in the U.S., yet they constitute almost 1/3 of women working in home care. And again, you can kind of look at this as kind of evidence of the systemic and structural racism inherent to the system, which afflicts, Black women specifically. And yet the case for investing in care as infrastructure is far more than a case for equity. A report from just last month cited how investing $77.5 billion per year would support over 2 million new jobs at an average cost of $34,500 per supported job. This proposal would commit $50 billion a year to start. Care jobs generally are also job-enabling jobs, allowing mothers and family caregivers to return to the workforce and workers to stay in their job as their families' needs change, rather than forcing them to choose one or the other. The debate over whether care is infrastructure is sorely out of touch with the majority of Americans. In 2019, a survey showed 73% of Americans believe there are not enough caregiving professionals to take care of those in need then or in the future. And that was prior to the pandemic revealing the current and impending crisis. The survey also showed that 82% of Americans across party lines supported a federal program that everyone pays into and everyone could access for support, including childcare, paid family leave, long-term care for disability, and care for family members as they got older. Okay, so a program that people pay into is bullshit. It should just be, you get it. Child care should be free. Paid family leave, that should be normal. Long-term care disability, that should be paid for as a part of healthcare, nationalized healthcare, and you've got, cradle to grave should be paid for. Care for family members as they get older, sure, that should be taken care of as well in cradle to grave. Healthcare and life care, but also paying family members to take care of them as well should be an option as well. Just this week, a survey showed that support for the American Jobs Plan has bipartisan support of likely voters, backed by a 52 percentage point margin, 73% support, 21% oppose, firmly placing the debate of care as infrastructure in the chattering class, not with voters. Care can't wait. For those already struggling to provide care or access it, the pandemic created a crisis within a crisis. It's time we create bold solutions that will make meaningful difference for Americans across the country, of all party affiliations, who need a strong care infrastructure. That's why many of us joined Vice President, fuck her and fuck her, this person I don't know, Secretary Raimondo, and others for the Care Can't Wait Summit to share our care stories and demonstrate the urgency for action. Yeah, if these fuckheads cared, they would be passing universal health care. minimum wage. I mean, they have the power to do it, and they fucking chose not to do it. So fuck both of them, right? They don't. Again, this can't wait. Can't wait. Summit is just fucking performative bullshit. We haven't read anything about it, but if they're joining it, we know it's performative because they haven't done jack shit since then to do anything about this, right? Oh my god. And I watched the video, the full interview of Brianna Joy Gray. Full interview? They're talking about, Sam Cedar talking about forced to vote, right? Great video. And yeah, and even the squad is not using their power to force the vote, which they definitely need to do. Okay, CARE's always been infrastructure, and we're finally having a conversation about what is needed for that infrastructure to be strong enough to support the needs and potential of women of color, our families, and our workforce. If we're serious about economic recovery, it would be silly not to prioritize care jobs infrastructure. Okay, so one way to do this would be people in these positions to say, hey, government, I'm doing this. Look. We probably need some way to verify it. Otherwise, just everyone and their brother can do it. But you do it, you verify it, and then they just get paid through the government. Oh, Mizumi too. Thank you so much for the follow. I'm glad you found something of value here. Welcome, welcome. Or UBI would be another way of doing it. Maybe UBI in addition to an additional amount of money above and beyond that, to make sure that they get to that, $75,000 threshold for my minimum wage. Hi, how you doing? Welcome. Welcome. Where are you from? I'm from the United States, Wisconsin. We're talking CARES infrastructure. This is from April. It's an article from then. I just haven't had a chance to go over it because I had other things to go over. But it's something, as I was talking about earlier, that the minimum wage originally allowed a male to work and support his entire family. Basically allowed for the wife to stay home and take care of the family, that sort of thing. I don't know where the two G's came from. Good question. Lesbian, I don't know. There's a list in the About section. There's a link over here. This one says lesbian, gay, genderqueer. There you go. Yeah. If you click on the link there, it goes. This is one of my regulars here found this amazing link looking at it. So genderqueer, that's what it's for. Bisexual, demisexual, transgender, transsexual, two-spirit, intersex, queer, questioning, asexual, allies, pansexual, polyamorous, and there's a whole lot more there. No, I wasn't. I'm an ally here. And actually, gay marriage is what got me into politics way back in the day. This is my blog. And this is... yeah. Gay marriage is the first thing that got me into... Got me into politics, and social sexual issues first, and then it popped out into... I wasn't either. I actually facilitated a talk on gender and sexuality. 2018 is when I was doing this sort of stuff, and it's pretty amazing. You are? Okay, cool. I'm as straight as the day is long, as they say. And I found this amazing types of sexual attraction orientation. This isn't gender, but it's... yeah, here it is. And I had a couple showed up to my talk, and she was blown away by this. Can I get this bigger? Oh, come on, you bastards. There we go. So yeah, the different types of sexual attraction and orientation. It was pretty mind-blowing seeing all this. So I assumed it was when people try to make a joke at it. Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, just add letters because they're just like, what the fuck. And it's, when you start getting into it, it's like, holy fuck in a box. Look at all this. Abro-romantic, polyromantic, panesthetic, And it just breaks it down into just amazing specificity. I just had no idea whatsoever. It was a huge learning experience. No, it's all good. It's all good, dude. All good. Yeah, we talked gender. Yeah, I've got a bunch of things down here about the different terminology from different places. That way people can, outside the, yeah, oh, I know. It's such a, once you start getting into it, there's such an umbrella that it covers, from gender to the terminology here. I'll go ahead and share this if you want to take a look at it. There's a whole bunch of stuff, links here I collected on it that goes over the terminology and things like that. And there's links to my posts here and here. Links on sexuality, and so on. Yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask, although it's been a while since I've studied this. Sacred Sexuality is something I also studied a bit too. This is an amazing book. Sex, Crime, and Punishment for 4,000 Years of Judging Desire. It's hard to read, but a really good book. Yeah, there you go. Welcome to my channel. Yep, so I blog about politics, and I also have my own policy site as well. I'll throw this to you as well, so you have it. I don't really cover LGBT stuff so much in my policies so much, at least not directly. I do talk about teaching LGBT issues in school and in history as well. Women, people of color, LGBT, sexual minorities as well should be in the history books, but that's about the only place that I honestly talk about it so much, except for my Declaration of Unified Rights of Humanity. Sexuality is something fundamental. I don't know. It's been so long since I've done this. Sexuality. Okay. Article 1. There we go. Yeah. So everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this Declaration of the Unified Rights of Humanity without distinction of any kind, such as gender identity, sexual orientation, sexual identity, romantic identity, familiar or other similar close interpersonal arrangements, or any expression thereof, and then race, gender, color, and stuff like that. So this is kind of the fundamental articles of this. Trying to get all the LGBT, social, sexual, gender identity sort of stuff out of the way, because it's not, it hasn't been there before. Yeah. Oh yeah. There's Left Flank Vets. That's a channel that's all Left Flank Vets. I'm trying to get noticed so I can be on there with them, but yeah, you can go Left Flank Vets. They've got a whole bunch there, and I'm sure you can find a whole bunch. They have a Discord channel too, as well, that you can go into. So they got a whole bunch of vets and stuff there. Yeah, and that's a lot of what you'll find, because as I talk about, once you become a part of the systems of control, government, military, religion, banks, is there another one? Law enforcement, then you generally get shifted to the right. You become more sociopathic and right wing. And military is a large one of those, because they tell you to shut your face, do what you're told, don't ask questions, just shut up and do it, otherwise people could die. So yeah, generally joining the military means people generally get shifted to the right, or these other institutions as well. So yeah, I don't know that many vets myself. I'm an introvert, so I don't do peopling. I have a good friend of mine too, who was he was also in the military as well, but he's not really left, he's center left, maybe somewhere around there. Definitely center left. Definitely not right leaning. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. But yeah, I know one other guy. I don't know very many. I stay by myself. Yeah, let me find that for you. Left Flank Vets. They're also on Twitter too. They're very active. Hold on. Left Flank Vets. Here they are. And they're also on Twitter. left flank vets. There. And then you can find their Discord through their Twitch channel or something like that. Should be able to find more from there. We're out there. We are out there. There we go. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, definitely do that. They have multiple people on there. They have like a panel going on, or, you know, cooperative things going on all the time. So they're pretty cool. Pretty cool. I don't get to watch too much Twitch at all, but I will definitely check them out because they're vets and they're leftists and they're anti-imperialist and all that sort of stuff. So it's always good to hear what they have to say. As a matter of fact, last week I read War is a Racket on my channel, which is by Major General Smedley Butler. That is Major General Smedley Butler, which is the quote that they'll use a lot. War is a racket. I use that in my policies actually as well. Major General. Yeah, that quote. I actually got this from the Venus Project actually. Right here. I spent 33 years in active military service, and during that period I spent most of my time as a high-class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street and the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. And this is referring to World War I, his time there, and his book, which I read, which is like, it's only like an hour read, or 20 pages, something like that. And he really just talking about the war profiteering from World War I. It was pretty, not much has changed since then. It's just the numbers have gotten bigger. All right, so there you go. Yeah, let left flank vets know that I sent you over there. All right. What time is it? Okay, 47. Okay, I can't go over that. I'm gonna read this one here. Because I talk about population and stuff like that on occasion. I have a post started on this sort of a thing, and it's not population growth that is the fundamental problem. It's a symptom of some of the problem that we're having. There we go. Can I get rid of? There we go. All right, good. So David Attenborough, if you don't know who this guy is, he does a lot of nature videos. He's knighted, isn't he? Sir David Attenborough. He does lots of nature videos and has for a very long time. So here, David Attenborough, population growth must come to an end. Okay, so all right, let's get into this. In my policies do address this problem in the environmental area. And we can look at that after this. Renowned naturalist David Attenborough sat down with BBC Newsnight for a wide-ranging interview about the environment and how the planet cannot accommodate the alarming rate of human overpopulation. Okay. One of the reasons that the population has increased as fast as it has is that people like me are living longer than we did. Okay, that is true, because the advancements of science and medicine, all that sort of stuff does let people live longer. Yep, true. Attenborough explained. And so there are more and more people just because the expectancy of life has increased. Yep, even now, with the world's current population of 7.6 billion, humanity uses up Earth's natural resources 1.7 times faster than the planet's ecosystem can regenerate, according to the Global Footprint Network. Yeah, and this is the fundamental problem here. I mean, both of those are issues. Now, if we still had 7.6 billion or whatever it is, and we were using things sustainably, that wouldn't be so much a problem, unless, of course, the rate at which population was growing was aiming for a non-sustainable number. And what you'll find, and this is something we get into, is if we have the emerging countries, the second and third world countries, shift to first world status, we will bypass the harms of the demographic transitions, and then we'll have a population decline. This ecological debt is poised to increase as the world population is expected to reach 8.5 billion by 2030, 9.7 billion by 2050, and 11.2 billion in 2100. Yeah, so this, okay, so, all right, so this is definitely not going to be a thing by 2100. We're just looking at climate change, and we talked about that we are aiming for the worst case climate condition, the RCP 8.5, which basically has us at 2100 at a 4.6 degree increase. So yeah, what this by 2050, 2070, we should hit about 10 billion, and then the population will start going down, and that's actually a natural progression as nations advance. But by virtue of climate change, this is going to be radically different, because people are going to be dying over these next few decades like crazy because of there's going to be food shortages, water shortages, massive heat waves, freezing, all sorts of stuff, right? It's going to be bad. As Attenborough noted, in the long run, population growth has to come to an end. And if our governments were responsible, as I was showing one of my policies, that we could end this. We could end this in the next decade easily, if we so chose. The legendary English broadcaster who spoke with the BBC on the 40th anniversary of his groundbreaking Life on Earth series commented on a variety of environmental topics. He said he's eating much less meat. We simply cannot destroy the natural forests and plains of the world in order to feed ourselves. We have to modify our diet. And the issue of plastic pollution, he said, we should do our best to avoid the use of plastic. Okay, yeah, these are exactly right, and we rarely use red meat. As you've looked at various articles on this topic, we were talking about this Thursday when I was on, that I don't remember the exact number, but like 40% of our land, 46% of our land is used for like cows, and they provide like 2% of our nutrition. It's such a fucking waste. We need to get off cows for food at the very least, and then getting off cows for food and then wild that area, that would be such a huge gain. And yes, getting out of plastic is definitely a good thing. And part of this problem, this is a capitalism problem, right? Because everyone is competing. And honestly, if we shifted towards like I don't know what they call it, mass gross, like going to the store and bringing your own like container, and then putting in your oatmeal in there or whatever, instead of having individual use stuff. Buying bulk, there we go. Buying bulk. That would be one way around it. Also, in the interview, Attenborough admitted that up to 5 years ago, he was very pessimistic about the future of the planet, but the landmark Paris Agreement to combat climate change changed his attitude. Well, then, come on, dude, this is fucked up. As I say here, right? Paris Agreement doesn't mean jack shit. It is just a fucking piece of paper that you sign, and it has no enforcement. It has no teeth to it at all. And recently, articles talking about this say that one of the signatory countries is even close to meeting their Paris agreements. The measurements set in the Paris Climate Agreement, right? Only one. The rest are like, not binding, so fuck all, right? And that's a bit ridiculous of, Sir David Attenborough to be hopeful for this, because it's fucking garbage. Paris Climate Agreement is garbage. Total fucking garbage. I have it in my policies that we should sign it, but it doesn't fucking mean anything, and I even say that in here. Let me just go ahead and pull it up. It's just feel-good garbage. Re-sign the Paris Climate Accord, even though this is non-binding, toothless, and relatively performative political theater, which is exactly what it is. Sure, sign it, but BFD, big fucking deal. The Paris Agreement seemed at the time to be at last nations coming to their senses. Attenborough remains hopeful despite President Donald Trump's intention to withdraw from the international accord signed by nearly 200 countries. Oh, okay. So this is old. When is this? This is 2018. Okay, so 2018. So this is a bit old. little bit old, so we'll keep that in perspective. Okay. Yeah, because fuck Donald Trump. Yeah, and Biden signed it again, but again, it's political performative theater. It doesn't mean anything at all. It is true that President Trump doesn't go along with it. To what extent the United States is going to withdraw from it, we'll see, he said. My suspicion is that people will realize that actually the United States' attitude is outdated. It doesn't apply anymore, and I think that will be overcome. No, that's not going to happen. That is antithetical to capitalism. There is no money to be made in saving humanity from extinction. Period. There's a groundswell internationally recognizing what we are doing to the planet and the disaster that awaits us unless we do something, Attenborough said. This is the only world we've got. Yeah, so actually, the planet can support trillions of people, honestly. But this here, so my policies go into talking about this, right? We need to be building up, we need to be building down. We need to be getting into Atlas pillars, arcologies, plus Atlas pillar and earth scrapers. We need to be building down and we need to be building up. And then that way we get rid of all these sprawling garbage like this. And then all this becomes one giant ass building, and then you rewild all of this. That's what we need to do. Okay, there you go. That is that. This will be the last article of the day. And then I'm going to go over here to my climate, and let's go to Atlas. There you go. So yeah. Atlas pillars. Oh yeah, so earth scrapers. I'll go ahead and throw this in here so you guys have access to it. There's this amazing video by Science and Futurism with Isaac Arthur. If you have not followed this channel, please, dear God, follow this channel. It is amazing. This talks about what arcologies are, and then they also do they get the Atlas pillars? Well, Atlas pillars are an extension of basically an arcology is a giant ass skyscraper that is as self-sustaining as possible, creating its own energy, creating its own food, vertical farming, that sort of stuff. And then Atlas pillars take that a step farther by making it super mega ultra tall by using active support. Now, some of this may not be able to really be done until we have fusion, or there are ways that we can do active support without fusion. But then, so you make it super tall, and then you eventually connect that to a space elevator, and then connecting that space elevator is dropping off an orbital ring. I mean, this is stuff, a lot of the stuff we can do today. The orbital ring we can do today, the space elevator we can do today. And instead of a space elevator, we could do a skyhook, then use launch loops to launch things into the atmosphere, and catch it with a skyhook, pull it to the orbital ring, and then send it to space from there. So much we can do. But that would mean corporate profit. All right, there you go. Questions, comments, suggestions. Again, these are my policies. A lot of good stuff there. Anyone? Going once, going twice. Then we'll call this a day. Again, I stream on Tuesdays, Thursdays at 5 p.m. U.S. Central, and Saturdays at 3 p.m. Central. And yeah, I've got my YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. In my About section here on Twitter, you can, on Twitch, you can find links to all that sort of stuff there too, as well. Yeah. Any last minute comments, questions, suggestions? All right, everyone. Thank you so much for gifting me with your time. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Have a great week, and we'll see you guys again on Thursday. Peace out.
just me and you. Let's make up all the rules. Count to 10 and watch the